Welcome back to the Northern Business Podcast, a regular discussion with people in the north of England who lead businesses, employ people and have new ideas to help our economy grow. The Northern Business Podcast is produced by Recognition PR, which serves scores of companies in different sectors across the country, some of which occasionally contribute to the programme. We're kindly sponsored by Virtue Motors plc, one of the top automotive retailers in the UK, with a network of dealerships representing some of the world's most popular brands. I'm Graham Robb, and in the studio today we have Tony Earnshaw, who's the CEO at UK Commercial Group, and also Judith McMinn, CEO of the innovative sports brand Rezon. Welcome to the first of our new series of the Northern Business Podcast.
Hello, Graham.
Hello, and let's start with you, Judith. Your ladies first, and you've got this fantastic product that you've brought to the market. Let's hold it up for cameras to see, but for people listening, I'll describe it. It's called Halos.
It is.
And it is a protective band that goes around your head. But why would you want to buy something like this?
A protective headband that protects the brain in sport, and for those who should wear it because of medical needs in everyday activities. And it reduces the risk of concussion, and more importantly protects in smaller force impacts called subconcussions, and it's the accumulated damage of subconcussions that leads to early onset dementia. And as of today, the product's worn in 19 sports, sold to 16 geographies, and it's a UK-made product. We make this in Sheffield with an all-British supply chain.
Fantastic. Pass it over to me. I'm going to put it on my head so that people can see it. Goes...
Turn around the other way?
That way?
No, the other way.
That way?
That's it. Perfect.
Okay, so it goes on like this. People...
So the bigger part goes to the back?
The bigger part goes to the back.
That's a fantastic
and it's like a headband. And what is in it? It's quite robust. It's comfortable and soft. But when you hit it, it is robust.
Yep, there are 9 layers, and that 9-layer design is a UK granted patent. And when you take an impact, whether that's from a ball, an elbow, a knee to the ground, those layers move over each other and they reduce what are called rotational forces to the brain. Rotational forces cause the brain to rotate inside the skull, and when the brain rotates, it tears brain cells and creates inflammation. So this is a very novel design. And there's no other product globally that can make the claim that we do, that we reduce those rotational forces by up to 61%.
Tony, we'll talk about your business in a minute, but I know that you play sport yourself. What do you think of that product?
Well, we play football every Sunday, and just this weekend, I went in for a big header, and somebody came in from the right-hand side and actually headbutted me. And you can see the lump, you can see it very clearly. I felt very dizzy, and this would have I've tried it on already, and this would have prevented that from happening. I couldn't open my jaw for a couple of days, so I've been in soup. Is there a reason why the bigger part's at the back?
Yes, so it cuts into the back of the head, and the worst place to get hit is the back of the head or the side of the head. That causes remote rotation.
Right, okay.
I'm sorry to tell you, but yes, and probably some of those symptoms you're telling us about are probably delayed concussion.
So if I was playing football with this on, and I headed the ball, would I still get the same accuracy with the ball? Am I able to head the ball?
You would, and we've had that tested in various scenarios. And we do actually have this product in 4 Premier League academies. So yes, we can't guarantee that you're going to score more goals wearing it, but we can say that it doesn't distort the accuracy of the heading.
Now, there is an issue with sports concussion, which is being looked at. You see it debated. It started in the American Football League, and it's come over the Atlantic, and rugby union's looking at it. Tell us about that issue.
Well, here in the UK, the actual largest medical legal case is ongoing at the moment, and that involves former rugby league, rugby union and football players. And today in the media, there's also been a similar case which has proceeded to the next stage in Australia. So this is a global concern, and it's now a global litigation in terms of former players, amateur and professional players, who are now starting to sue their clubs and their leagues for essentially negligence around brain injury, the knowledge of it, particularly around those small force impacts called subconcussions, and how that brain injury was treated. And unfortunately, a lot of people probably still think that brain injury doesn't matter to them because they're not in the Premier League or they're not a professional. But actually, brain injury starts in childhood. And really, one of the things that we struggle with is getting that education piece out there. So brain injury in sport isn't going away. And the answer is not to stop sport. The answer is to put in innovative solutions to reduce brain injury in sport, which we are one.
I think you're correct on that. And actually, where I live, it's quite a big rugby town. And I know a lot of the parents around that town. And they're scared to put their kids in rugby these days. It's more tag rugby, and then they tend to leave, and the sport's dying a death because of it. But something like this could completely change that.
And it's not just a rugby problem. Again, I think unfairly, rugby has taken a lot of the brunt and the negativity. And that's an education piece, because the human brain doesn't care whether you got an elbow in netball, a knee in rugby, or a ball in football.
Yeah.
An assault is an assault to the brain. And children who are doing loads of sports, they're picking up subconcussions, they're picking up concussion risk in all of these sports. So, it's not a rugby product.
How much would this cost me, one of these?
And that costs you the price of a latte every week. It retails for $94.99, and when you split that over a 30-week period, that's the price of a latte.
Some schools are using this now, aren't they? When you look at playing, particularly in some of the schools that give good sports for rugby and other sports, feeder schools. Do you think that it will end up being a regulation issue?
The insurance companies. And back to that point about the medical legal case, the legal action will trigger a number of things, and one of them will have to be around how do you reduce the risk of negligence in schools. And the insurance companies are definitely very concerned about CTE. That's this early onset dementia.
And just remind us what CTE means.
Chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is a disease that probably was made popular through the concussion film with Will Smith a number of years ago. But CTE has been diagnosed in former amateur and professional rugby players and football players in this country, and it's now being diagnosed in the living, and that is of a concern to the insurance companies. So to answer your question, yes, at the moment our product is bought by concerned parents, people who are invested, people who are informed. Radley School is our signature school in this. They have brought it in for the boys. But I think next term, next season, I'm hoping to see more schools take a forward leap into protection.
Before we talk to Tony about his business, you have a very interesting backstory. You were one of the people running Tony Blair's Global Institute and so on before just when it was in its original form, and you've gone into business. You've got a passion for this. What led you to this idea and this product?
Well, I've had a question for 30 years from playing hockey at school. Why do you protect your shins and teeth in sport and not your brain? I did law at university. I've spent the last 20 years of my career helping organisations, including Sir Tony Blair, grow and develop their businesses. So entrepreneurism and having my own business seemed a very natural stage. And in the absence of any brain protection product in the market, I stepped out and did it myself. And a very challenging time in the middle of COVID to do that. And I think entrepreneurship is very difficult, and bringing a new product to a new market even more so.
And you self-funded it, haven't you?
I've self-funded it and decided for a number of design principles to make this product in Britain, which in itself brings its own challenges, not always understood or appreciated by the consumer.
Well, you get a full 3 cheers from this podcast for that. That is part of the solution, not the problem for our country. Now, Tony, let's talk about your business. UK Commercial Group, been going quite a while now, and you've made an impact. Tell us what you do and the size and scale you've got it to.
Yes, Graham. We are a national award-winning facilities management company. We have 4 offices across the country, which is Newcastle, Leeds, London, and Manchester. We basically carry out services from specialist maintenance, commercial cleaning, and training. Everything we do is in-house. We employ our own staff. We don't subcontract any work out. And we're a very fast-growing company.
And buildings, so this is buildings you look after, of course. Buildings they're a health and safety issue. I own a building. This building that we're producing this podcast in, I own, and I always worry, does the air conditioning get serviced properly? And what about the roof? Is it gonna leak? And you do want to make sure that you're not, as a business and building owner, liable.
Yeah, we look after many different buildings across the UK, from care homes, hotels, restaurant businesses, gyms and leisure facilities, and we look after the compliance within that. So things like air conditioning, the kitchen extraction systems, the guttering, the drains, and we carry out different services around that, from the maintenance to the cleaning and we provide certification to make sure that business is compliant and within the health and safety rules.
Now, I first met you about 10 years ago when you were on Dragon's Den, and my...
15 years ago.
Is it that long?
That long ago, yeah.
Well, you haven't changed a bit. Anyway, my friend and long-standing client, Duncan Bannatyne, invested in you. Now, tell us about the journey, the growth over this period of 15 years.
We've seen significant growth. Obviously, through those years, we've had a recession. We've had COVID, but we've continued to grow at a nice, steady pace. We've stuck with our clients and worked with them through the COVID times. We do a lot of work within the care home industry, and we were very fortunate to be able to help them in that period when COVID was everywhere, with PPE, with the deep cleans, the decontaminations, but also people like the care homes, they had no choice. They couldn't close. So they needed the support services from UK Commercial to deliver these.
Now, you've got this most wonderfully bizarre pivot in your business, and it's a very rational pivot, but I'd never come across something so weird. You've moved from cleaning regular buildings, like this building we're in here, to additional cleaning of crime scenes.
Yes.
What a niche product. Tell us about that. And is it a good business?
So the crime scene cleaning, which we carry out for housing associations, landlords, councils, kind of evolved itself. We were already carrying out the waste removal for them, needle sweeps, and basically getting properties, which are tenanted properties, back to a living standard. And what happened as a side effect, as we were coming across scenes where there would be crime, so cannabis farms, drug dens, so different people, sudden deaths and murders, and the councils and housing associations basically wanted us to start working with them to make sure that we could get these properties safe for their workmen to go in and our workmen to go in, because they're time critical. They want to get their properties turned around and rented out as fast as possible. And so it kind of developed over a period of years. I went on some training around the crime scene cleaning and the different scenarios. And over about a period of 10 years, it's evolved, and we're quite big in that sector now. And we've just been on crime scene cleaners.
Yeah, Channel 4 had all the different specialists from America as well, cleaning different gruesome crimes and looking at some of the gruesome crimes that you were cleaning up after, blood from stabbings and needles from druggies and all sorts.
We had 3 different scenarios on there. One was a drug den, where they had been using methadone and heroin and lots of different types of drugs. There was needles around the property that set booby traps in the property, because they don't think that it's our company, UK Commercial Group, going in. They think it's the people who've evicted them, so their landlord,
or the police,
council, or the police, and they are putting things in needles and doorbells. We had an instance, which you can see on the TV, where they had put it in a coat hanger above a door, so you couldn't necessarily see it as much, but you'd hit the needle in your face. We had scenarios where there'd been a stabbing and somebody had been stabbed outside the front door of a block of flats that tried to escape and was put up the side of the walls, which we had to make safe. We also had a cannabis farm, which they were cultivating cannabis, and there was a lot of paraphernalia left behind from that cannabis farm and from the crime that was committed.
Now, you've got this diversification, but it's a logical diversification because it is about cleaning. But you just talked about how you train it, and you've managed to make your business not just doing, but training. Tell us about the training centre that you...
So as you know, in this country, there's quite a big training gap. And I was thinking to myself, how do I get my staff trained? So one of the most obvious things to do was to create my own training centre. Then I can, one, deliver that training to my staff internally, but also we can then offer that training and sell it at a cost to other companies in the industry who want to learn about different scenarios and different types of cleaning and different types of maintenance. So whether it be the crime scene cleaning course, which we offer, whether it be the HVAC, which is heat and ventilation, whether it be kitchen extraction systems. And we were governed by different bodies and we're accredited and approved. So it did 2 things. It filled the gap from our internal points of view, but also filled the gap for other companies who need our services and who also want to deliver that service to other companies.
So here we are on the Northern Business Podcast with two fantastic entrepreneurs, Judith McMinn and Tony Earnshaw. And you've told us about your businesses. And let's just conclude the podcast by spending a few minutes talking about the environment in which you're selling things. Because, you're tremendously passionate about what you do, but we've got an economy now which has got some problems. Unemployment's up, growth's down, inflation's up, interest rates are tweaking down but generally stable. And the amount of money available for investment seems to have stagnated somewhat. Now, that may be not an entirely balanced picture. What is your view, Judith, on where the economy sits that you're operating in?
Well, I think there are two aspects. One is investment into startup or early stage businesses, and investors are nervous. They are holding back. And so there's just not that money out there that angels might have put into more risky or early stage businesses. And the second is consumer confidence. We are still probably a luxury product. Even though it's a necessary product, it's still a luxury product. And we are seeing people scale back in terms of their purchases.
Yes.
So those are two things that I think we see, day in, week in, around people maybe that might be interested in investing in the business and seeing us scale and grow with us in the journey, and then day-to-day customers.
Now, if you could write the budget, is there anything you'd do? Is there any magic wand that you'd wave? You have no manifesto to worry about, unlike the politicians that are elected. What would you do, Judith?
I think there are a few things. One is change the narrative to being growth focused. The narrative, and that's just not any one thing in the budget. It is everything up until the 26th of November and everything around the budget. This government was elected on a mandate of growth. We have to get the growth message back. People have to believe and they have to see the growth. So whatever the budget brings forth, it needs to support growth and stop the overtaxing. And then I think there are things in particular around early stage business to allow them to grow to the size of business that Tony now has. How do you support people in that? How do you attract investment? Is there tax advantages to that as well? Those are some of the things I think
I think your objectives are absolutely right. I think that the problem that the government has had, it's so consumed with its own spending that it is having to borrow. And that borrowing is causing people who may invest in businesses like yours to think, well, I can lend the money to the government and make more money than investing in an early stage business. Or I could take it out of my pension and live on it. It's got a lot of mixed messages, and it seems to be that they haven't cracked that.
No, not at all. And that is the negativity. And I think the next few months as we wait on the budget will intensify that. Every weekend paper will run with a story from now until November. And that's damaging for consumers, house owners, sellers, buyers. That I think is the real sort of cycle of doom that we could find ourselves in for the next few months.
I think you're right. And the fact that the budget is so late, it's the 26th of November. Now, the budget last year was the 30th of October. So it's actually a 13-month year. And there are people who are making their plans this autumn. Take someone in my position. I'm in my early 60s, and you worry about whether you can take your 25% of your pension out tax-free after November. So you might consider, I haven't yet, but you might consider taking that money out tax-free while you can and investing it in government gilts, lending it to the government. That's just not doing anything for the economy. The government could, because it's got its budget so late, start to just rule out a few things and sort of nudge people to make investments. That would be pretty good. Tony, what's your same question to you that I asked Judith? What do you think about the current economy and how it works with you?
I think since Labour have come in, growth has been overall 1.9%. However, that's just a very small snippet. Over the last, since June 2024, I think July 2024, since they come into power, it has gone down, especially since the last budget, since all these taxes came in on business and on employment and employing people. And I think it's smothering the economy, and it's making leaders and business owners like myself think twice about what the next steps are and how we go forward. I agree with the cycle of doom, which it shouldn't be. I think there's a lot of negativity at the moment around the economy, which isn't good for anybody.
How many staff do you have?
About 140 staff.
That's quite a lot of staff.
Yeah.
So your national insurance bill would have gone up
Yeah, so I think at the time it went up about £12,000 a month.
£12,000 a month.
Yeah.
My goodness, that's a lot.
So
So that's money not available to invest.
yeah,
And it's not available for profit. So you might have taken some for yourself and bought something nice, which is good. But you are probably, if you're like me, you would have invested some as well. And you're just having to get through, are you?
well, we've made adjustments and made savings so we can pay for that, and we also offer other things to our staff like private health insurance and things like that. But I think if there's any more things put on business when the next budget comes out, I think its growth will come to a stall, if not a recession in the next 18 months.
What is your view on the next big bit of business stuff from the government is going to be the workers' rights bill? Now, some people will be a little bit apprehensive about that from an employer point of view. From an employee point of view, it might cause people to feel more secure. I mean, the headlines are that it's going to ban these flexible contracts. It's going to protect against unfair dismissal from the first day you're employed, and it's going to give a generally more stronger workers' rights. Now, if you're a member of staff working for you, you might think that's pretty good.
I've read this bill and I'm quite scared what's going to happen, and hopefully it doesn't get fully published in its entirety and it's softened down. Some of it I agree with. 0-hour contracts, I don't think it's fair for anybody. However, some people who are on these 0-hour contracts might want to be on these contracts. People who work for delivery companies like Deliveroo, that's their choice. But for us, where it's going to hit us hard is day one worker rights. If we're employing somebody from day one and they have full rights of employment, we don't know who these people are. They don't know who we are. We need, at 2 years, probably too long. I think it's too long before any employee gets full rights. I think 6 months is fair because you've got to get to know that person. That person's got to get to know our company. It might not be right for them. It could not be right for us. And if we're in a position where we are taking on staff and it's not the right member of staff and they're not performing, then that then directly affects the business. It directly affects the businesses we serve who are not potentially getting the best service. And we can't just say, look, it's not working out. We have got to stick with that person, and it takes a lot to then replace that person. So I think,
would you recognise a union? Because the union recognition is going to be
when the bill comes in, I think you've got no choice.
Yeah.
I think you've got to recognise a union. If it's 2 or more staff,
yeah, well, it's 2%. You get
the employee, yeah.
and you employ 100 people, so it's
2 or 3 members of staff, and then we've got a union involved now again. That's extra cost to the business. And without people like myself and business owners, there is no economy, there is no jobs. We are the ones who are paying for the police, paying for the NHS. The money all comes into this country through business. And then it is dished out. If we are kept in a box and we're suffocated, then what you're going to see in the next 12 to 18 months, we're going to end up going into negative territory and in a recession. And ultimately, business growth is going to stop and businesses are going to shrink, and some will suffer and go under.
So it's a business podcast. I don't feel completely obliged to put the other side. But what I would say, Judith, you worked with Tony Blair and you saw in his government a much more measured approach. For instance, small businesses with fewer than 20 staff didn't have to recognise unions, and unfair dismissal law was brought down from 2 years to 1 year. So it was a little bit more benign, and people were, perhaps employers were more responsible as well.
Yeah, I think the word there is measure. So I think there are things in this bill that they're just too far. And I think probably with Angela Rayner's departure, that is the time to look at this bill again. And I think this bill will be slowed down, and I think things will be lost in it. And I think against where we are as an economy, and I think against the mandate and the businesses are putting on the government to grow and to support businesses, I think some of this will be diluted or delayed, slow walked. So I don't think a lot of those things that are being proposed, which are, very supportive to workers, but very restrictive, as you've just heard from Tony, I think they will be diluted down. And measure is the way we're going to get out of this. Common sense and good work.
The last thing I wanted to mention, oh, by the way, I should just for absolute balance, hold this news cutting up. This is from a newspaper in Northeast England, and it's about the Entrepreneurs Forum, who are, because we've been a bit gloomy today, and it is true that people who own their own businesses, and to be a member of the Entrepreneurs Forum, you have to own your own business, and it has to turn over about £250,000 a year minimum, and many turn over more than that. And they are saying that the people in the Entrepreneurs Forum are actually collectively more upbeat about the economy. And they recognise that there's extra costs, but their turnover has grown. The collective turnover of 300 members has gone up from 2.2 billion to 2.5 billion. So there is something to be positive about. I don't want to, when people in business tend to be doom and gloom merchants. One last subject to cover before we wrap the podcast. And there was an interesting piece of narrative from the Chartered Institute of Personnel Development. And it was about sick leave. And it showed that, bizarrely, in the last year, workers have now been taking a lot more time off. Just a few years ago, it was just over a week off a year on average, 5.8 days. And now it's nearly 2 weeks, 9.4 days. You first on this one, Judith.
Well, I think Sir Stuart Rose's comments were most accurate in this, and he said we just need to have a bit more grit. And he encouraged people, if they felt a little bit unwell, to still go to work or work from home and do something. And I think, that is what needs to happen. I think some of that, of course, is legitimate and fair sickness, but some of it's also the ability for people just to say, oh, well, I'll just have a sick day. And I think I echo Sir Stuart Rose, a bit more grit. Let's all lean in and help and turn around the economy.
Good man. And by the way, if you play contact sports, buy one of these. One of me off field. What do you think on this issue of sick leave, Tony?
I agree. I think people need to have a bit more grit. And when I started my business 20 odd year ago, the country just seemed a lot more hard working and a lot more determined. And sick days, like I said, people would only go off sick if they were really ill. People, I think, now have a cold, and because of COVID, obviously that's probably made it a little bit worse. If I have a sniffle, it won't come in. And don't get us wrong, I imagine if these days after COVID, even myself, somebody's next to me with a cough and a cold, you're thinking, hold on a minute, don't necessarily sit next to me. But at the same time, you can be working from home. And I think we just need to, as a country, just move forward together and just remember that all these sick days add up. And if we want our businesses that we work for to do well, to support them in the full.
All right. Well, look, Judith, Tony, really dynamic conversation to kick us off on our new season. Thank you very much for coming in. Now, if you want to join us as a guest on the Northern Business Podcast, do get in touch. Use LinkedIn, get in touch with Recognition PR, or you can contact my podcast producer, the brilliant Alex Dryden. Thanks also to our technical operator, Robin Campbell. Join us next time for the Northern Business Podcast.